I knew that there was no way that that mob could be expected to be anything but ugly and rambunctious. And as expected, they were lawless and unleashed, surging forward, ignoring any leadership, raising and adding their voices to the din, cheering or screaming approval at the chaos, circling as if united in a common cause, a mission that they perceived to be almost sacred. But a mob is always threatening and scary. The description still makes me woozy every time I read it. With the benefit of distance, it is obvious that so much was at stake, but in the moment, they could not see it. A group this large, this unhinged, made it clear that there was no way to reason with them. They just wanted what they wanted, which was anything but what they had. In recent years, we have been increasingly exposed to protests, some of which have tipped over into violent behavior. Yes, there is always something to gripe about. So much dissatisfaction threads through daily life and society and politics. Anger that once just simmered beneath the surface is expressed more often overtly, publicly, and we feel it all around us. However, what I just described is not a snapshot of the rioters at Berkeley on Monday, or a pro-Palestine protest, or the January 6th assault on the Capitol. But the description can be found right in our hands in Exodus, a depiction of our own ancestors as they built and worshiped the golden calf. And if we call it an incident instead of a riot, as many commentators do, it sounds much more palatable, but in truth, no less dangerous. Because what broke that community apart was literally their inability to see. They had no insight. I have compassion for the Israelites who were redeemed from Egypt. Though they had experienced redemption, beginning with the plagues and the great escape through the parted waters of the sea and concluding with freedom, they couldn't see what God had done for them. And further, they had no experience worshiping a God they could not see. That alone would explain their false and failing efforts to replace the idea of God with the familiar physical manifestation of a calf. It doesn't call for any deep theological explanation, only that they were far from Egypt, which had been their home, and having an idol was a comforting reminder of what was once familiar. The text from Exodus offers us so much to consider. Listen to the biting and revealing exchange between Moses and Aaron. Moses said to his brother, "What did the people do to you that you brought such a great sin upon them?" Meaning that to keep the peace, Aaron had allowed them to create a golden calf to act as a substitute for God. And what about this observation? Moses saw that the people were out of control because Aaron had let them get out of control, so that they were a menace to any who might oppose them. The Midrash tells us that as Moses came down the mountain with the tablets of law in his arms, he saw the people dancing and singing around the idol. And then, because he was crushed with disappointment, he dropped the tablets, effectively abrogating the covenant because his purpose had no partner. But to focus only on the calf or the mob misses the lesson that we can glean from this painful turning point. What the Israelites lacked above all was not faith, but vision. There's no one today who doesn't hold a vision of what they would like for their own future, using our dreams as an incentive to reach beyond our reality. We lean into possibility. Perhaps that is something distinctly American. And yet that imagination was absent for our ancestors because the Israelites could not understand a God that had no form. So here is the lesson for us. What we cherish most is an idea. It is democracy. We cannot see it because it too has no tangible form and thus is at risk. Instead, we look for modern-day idols, ideologies, banners, slogans. They seem fragile in the face of an idea, or should I say, an ideal like democracy. At this critical hour in our country's history, we may fail to envision that democracy itself is in peril because we have always lived under its protective scope. It is natural to assume that it will always endure, that the laws and protections that we have enjoyed will continue unabated. As is often the case, we often only notice something once it disappears, such as when the rights we thought were a given are gone. Do you remember that there was a time, not so long ago, when the United States would send election monitors to developing nations to ensure free access to the polls and also fair voting results? And look at us now. Our own election process is in question. Reproductive rights have been restricted to conform to faith parameters to which we do not subscribe, curtailing our own religious freedom in the process. And free speech has become a weapon, inciting acts of violence rather than promoting a forum for conversation and the exchange of ideas. When we read about these various challenges to society, the message doesn't always land if we ourselves remain aware but untouched by these infringements. And yet there is a tremendous price if they continue to go unaddressed. It's as if we don't see them because they are beyond our immediate or personal experience. And while the very foundations of our democracy are regularly and masterfully assailed, we have become somehow inured to such threats. Threats that are so much part of the conversation that instead of signaling danger, they have become normalized background noise. We no longer discern the signal from the noise and see them for what they are. A popular phrase attributed to everyone, from the Buddha to Maya Angelou, reads, "When people tell you what they are going to do, believe them." And some of the worrisome things in the air around us shouldn't be ignored as empty concerns. Recently, Adam Kinzinger, author of Renegade, defending democracy and liberty in our divided country, spoke about his own work in developing countries. He noted that what a fledgling democracy needs to succeed is primarily one thing: that people trust that their vote counts. So even if the vote doesn't go their way, he said, they have confidence that they'll have another chance at the next election. And what is obvious, even if we don't feel its effects personally, is that confidence in our electoral system is actively being challenged. How often do we hear, even before a single ballot is cast, that the results are sure to be skewed, though there is no evidence that this is so? According to Professor Stephen Levitsky, author of How Democracies Die, democratic backsliding today begins at the ballot box. This is both an observation and a warning shared by many historians, like Anne Applebaum and Timothy Snyder, who study the rise of authoritarian regimes. And we don't have to look far at all to see the impact of the recent IVF decision of Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice Tom Parker, which stems from his own religious beliefs and effectively eliminates any illusion that in his state or in those courts there is still a separation between church and state. The earlier Dobbs decision limiting access to abortion created a platform for this subsequent ruling on extrauterine children, endowing embryos with the status heretofore accorded only to a viable breathing child. This goes against hundreds of years of Jewish legal scholarship, which recognizes a fetus as an individual rather than as a part of its mother only once it has crowned. And in addition to the real obstacle that the Alabama court's ruling causes for those who are actively engaging in building a family, the ruling undermines free expression of religion, which people of every faith have enjoyed since the founding of the nation. It was George Washington who, in 1790, explicitly named this protection when he wrote the now famous letter to the Hebrew congregation in Newport, saying, "It is now no more that toleration is spoken of, as if it was by the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoy the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens." That is an articulation of democracy, an ideal we now appreciate more fully because of its erosion. In the 234 years since Washington affirmed tolerance for those of all religious faiths, neither endorsing nor prohibiting its individual expression, it is shocking that a ruling like the one by Justice Parker would stand. That is an affront to every American who should have the liberty to choose. Yet the diminishment of rights is intangible. If we ourselves are not seeking to exercise them, here reproductive rights, voting rights, or freedom of religion or expression, do we really see or feel its impact or that on our democracy? Can we appreciate the threat to our rights before their loss becomes tangible? In Exodus, after the incident of the golden calf, Moses took the idol and ground it down into a powder, and the text reads, "He strewed it upon the water, and so made the Israelites drink it, so they would carry the taste of bitterness on their tongue thereafter." May we who love freedom and democracy drink deeply of the waters of liberty, so that our tongues may speak words of truth to those who threaten to erode it. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so.